Episode 9. Show off how in love you are. Lloyd leans in to kiss a panicked Yor, who ends up downing the entire bottle of wine as she cannot kiss him sober. Lloyd whispers that they do not have to do this, which leads Yuri to ask why they are whispering and whether they are actually a married couple. Yor throws a fork at Yuri to shut him up, grazing his cheek, and pushes down Lloyd to kiss him. As Yuri watches, he flashes back to his past, where Yor said she would wait for him when he wanted to marry her. Yuri leaps in to stop an embarrassed Yor, who tries to slap Lloyd. Lloyd dodges her slap, and Yuri ends up getting slapped. Yuri flies across the room before crashing and momentarily waking up Anya. A bloody Yuri gets up and misinterprets the slap as Yor being mad that he tried to stop them. Yuri concedes defeat, telling Lloyd that his sister's lips are Lloyd's for now, and an embarrassed Yor hits him again. Both siblings try to stand up but are drunk and start swaying. Luckily, Lloyd catches and holds them both up, then tells them how much he admires how wonderful siblings they are. Lloyd thanks Yuri for all the work he has done to protect his sister and assures him that he will do everything he can to support her as well. Yuri recognizes Lloyd's good nature but slaps Lloyd's hand away and says he is going home. Lloyd tells him he is welcome to visit anytime for Yor and meet Anya. Yuri declares that he will come back to prove that Lloyd tricked Yor into this marriage and warns Lloyd that if he makes Yor cry, he will have him executed, but quickly cuts himself off before finishing. Yuri then rushes off as Yor wishes him a safe trip home. As Lloyd and Yor clean up, Lloyd searches the apartment to ensure that Yuri did not plant any listening devices and finds nothing. Yor thanks Lloyd for tonight and how he was willing to accept Yuri as family. Lloyd comments how he envies them as someone without any other friends or family to rely on apart from Anya, and even she is not his actual daughter. Most of all, he is glad that Yuri did not find out about their pretend marriage. Yor agrees and says that she wants to go to bed, to which they remember the shared love bed they had set up and say they will sleep separately. Anya and Yor sleep while Lloyd reads an issue of Spy Wars. He contemplates the last time he felt envious of someone before deciding to head to sleep. As Yuri heads home, he asks two scary-looking men which direction the station is in, but they, worried, tell him to go to a hospital. Anya wakes up and says good morning to their plant, thinking it is Lloyd, who tells her to wash her face to wake up. Yor greets her good morning and says it was too bad she could not meet Yuri last night. Anya asks who that is before remembering that he is her uncle. She reads Lloyd's mind and finds out that Yuri is a member of the secret police. While Anya does not know what they are, she concludes they are something exciting. She cries out to Lloyd, asking why he did not let her see Yuri, while he is surprised that it meant so much to her. Lloyd is relieved that Yuri is gone so he can return to helping Anya study. As they eat breakfast, Lloyd questions his safety, now aware that Yor's brother is a member of the SSS. While Wise reports and his intuition find nothing suspicious about her, he decides to remain cautious. Anya, reading Lloyd's thoughts, chimes in to say something about Yor before pausing and saying she is a bad cook. Yor is shocked that Anya could tell she made breakfast today and apologizes, saying she did her best. As the family prepares to head out, Lloyd approaches Yor with a listening device, but wonders if doing this is going too far. He justifies it would be best for the sake of the mission to prove Yor's innocence. He pretends to wipe off some gunk on her neck while planting the bug on her. Yor thanks him, but is flustered, thinking he was going to kiss her after what happened the previous night. Reflecting on her recent failings, Yor begins to lose faith in her abilities as a mother, which she reasons is why Lloyd seemed distant this morning. As Anya is about to get on the school bus, she looks back at her parents and tells them to get along. They tell her they are fine, and Lloyd tells her to get along with her classmates. Lloyd thinks to himself about how intuitive children can be, before telling Yor they should be off too. At the SSS headquarters, the SSS lieutenant asks about Yuri's injuries since he was going to visit his sister's new family last night. Yuri says he barely remembers, and the lieutenant assumes Yuri got drunk and picked a fight with Lloyd. Yuri tells him that Lloyd does not deserve Yor and gets asked if Lloyd is a bad person. Yuri says that Lloyd seemed nice, but suspects it was all an act, and that he is secretly a spy that needs to get locked up. The lieutenant questions if he has any proof, and Yuri regrets not planting bugs. He quickly stops himself, thinking that if he heard his sister's voice in those situations, his heart would not be able to bear it. He slams his head against his locker, thinking about it, making the lieutenant question if the wounds were self-inflicted. The lieutenant tells Yuri that he needs to get over his sister so he can focus on his work and catching Western spies, Twilight especially. Yuri agrees, but if Lloyd makes his sister cry, it will be a different story. At Berlin City Hall, Yor is typing at her desk while holding back tears. Camilla questions what is with her, and Millie tells her that Yor has been telling herself she is a failure of a wife the whole day. Sharon comes into the office and learns that Yor wants to know how to be a good wife. She asks if they are not getting along, and Yor explains that she is unsure of how to act since this is her first relationship. On top of the city hall roof, Lloyd is listening in on her conversation and confirms that Yor has never been with a man before. Yor worries if their relationship can even go on since she cannot cook, and Lloyd realizes that Anya's comment must have cut deep. Lloyd sees that Yor is trying to seem wifelier for the sake of their pretend family, but suspects that it could also be her trying to deceive him. Camilla says that it must be Ralph having a husband who is better than her, and Millie tells Yor that she should just break up with him, Yor responding that she cannot. Hearing this, Lloyd thinks about the toxicity of Yor's relationship with her co-workers. Section Chief Barnes interrupts their discussion and tells them to get back to work, then asks if Yor can run a letter down to the post office for him. Lloyd considers that he will not figure out if Yor is suspicious without taking matters into his own hands. Yor drops off the letter at the post office and, on her way out, notices a sign about bank accounts for married couples, which reminds her that she and Lloyd have separate bank accounts. She wonders if the money she earns as an assassin could make her useful to Lloyd, but also realizes it might end up being suspicious, and that he probably does not need financial support. As she is thinking about this, she gets stopped by Lloyd and Frankie disguised as secret police officers, who tell her they have some questions for her and take her to an empty alleyway. A bit earlier, Lloyd is getting Frankie to help him with questioning Yor. Frankie asks why he is being made to do this, and Lloyd tells him to shut up and follow his lead. Lloyd tells her that in their mail inspection, they noticed that the letter she just posted had a coded message to the West. They ask her if the Barnes on the letter is her superior, which she confirms. When she tells them her name is Yor Forger, Frankie tells her that her name is written as a collaborator in the letter. Lloyd accuses her as part of the conspiracy, and Yor denies this, saying there must be a mistake. Lloyd and Frankie then tell her about someone they caught in the finance department who got tortured so intensely he killed himself in his cell. Frankie tells her that there was also a woman around her age who was the secretary of a parliament member who was caught last month. Lloyd adds that if she has an SSS family member, they would let her go. Frankie replies that it is a perk of the job to make those doubts disappear. Lloyd tells her that they will need to take her back to the station, thinking to himself that if she knows Yuri is in the SSS, all she needs to do is say his name to resolve this. She has no reason to hide his identity from his co-workers and will only further his suspicions if she resists. Yor tells them that she works hard for her country every day and would never participate in espionage. Frankie tells her not to play dumb and to come quietly as he lunges at her but gets interrupted by Yor throwing him to the ground, who reminds him that she is a married woman and asks not to be touched. Lloyd tells her there are consequences for resisting that may affect her family. Yor tells them that her husband and brother are respectable men, and if they are going to harm them, she will show them no mercy and gets ready to fight. Seeing that she is telling the truth, Lloyd asks Frankie, whom he calls Second Lieutenant Mop, if he is sure he deciphered the code correctly. Frankie then says it was coded in the caterpillar cipher and not the raccoon cipher. They tell her it appears to be a letter from Mr. Barnes to a hemorrhoid treatment specialist and had it encoded because of the subject matter. They apologize for the misunderstanding and tell her she is free to go, but ask her to keep the contents of the letter a secret. As Yor leaves, Frankie says they confirmed that she is not connected to the secret police while Lloyd removes his mask. Frankie asks if Lloyd is feeling guilty, and Lloyd denies it. Frankie, noticing Lloyd's expression is telling otherwise, tells him to keep his emotions out of this and to never trust anyone if he values his life. Lloyd rips off Frankie's disguise, irritated at being lectured by Frankie with that disguised face. Frankie complains since he was hoping to get some girls with that face. Lloyd tells him that getting women through deception is wrong, and Frankie retorts at the obvious contradiction. Yor walks back home, concerned about the events of today. She then runs into Lloyd, who asks her if she wants to walk home together. He again pretends to get some gunk off her collar as he retrieves the bug. Yor apologizes for being a failure as a wife who cannot even keep her clothes clean. Lloyd tries to comfort her by telling her there is no correct way for a wife to act. Trying to live up to an ideal is admirable, but it can constrict you from being who you are and utilizing your true strengths. He tells her that many of his patients struggle with that problem because having to perform all the time is exhausting. He tells her he just wants her to be who she is and how it would make Anya happy to see her smile. Yor thanks him for saying that and tells him she is glad she married him. Lloyd is startled and thinks back to Frankie's comment about doubting her before crushing and throwing away the bug. He then tells her they did not do anything to celebrate their fake first anniversary and should get some cake, to which she agrees. Anya returns home and is welcomed by Yor. Anya reads her parents' minds and is happy to see them getting along, and they say they were never fighting. They tell her they have cake and she begs for some, to which Lloyd tells her to stop jumping around so she does not bother their neighbors downstairs.